Turn on the AC. It's Angel Caruso.
Hello and welcome back. So today I am here to talk about The Fly 2, the sequel to the 1986 masterpiece starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. So in 1989 they pushed out a sequel, which, you know what, I don't mind it as a sequel, and the reason I'm making this video is because I'm shocked, and sometimes I'm shocked by an IMDb score. I don't think this film is better than the first one at all. I don't even think it's equally as good. But to have an IMDb score of 5.1, I don't get it. So I'm here to defend this film, because I think that this film tries so hard to be a faithful spin-off sequel to a film that didn't really need one. And the way that it tries is the fact that the telepods, using the same references from the first one, the Bartok Industries, it is all done in the vein of, it is a sequel to the first one. It's important, but it's lacking something. The first half of this film is really good. It's good. It's good in a different way. What you want them to do? Retell the same story? No. Where can they go with The Fly 2? It's his son. He's got accelerated growth. He's learning about human life. He's got a deceptive father who is the Anton Bartok, who is cunningly evil. Some points you do believe that he does have some sort of love for Martin, but then you realise he is literally the project of this entire operation to see what he evolves into. It's sad. He just wants a dad, and he uses it as his magic word. So I think that The Fly 2 is great up until the point that Eric Stoltz is not in it anymore, and it becomes just special effects with gore. As a child, I loved this. I saw this as a child, and I'm so glad that I did, because as an adult, I don't really care. But as a child, I thought it was cool. I thought the special effects looked real. When the head is crushed in the elevator, I think that is one of the best special effects ever. Just the most perfect edit of this squashed skull that it makes you wince, even now. So, where am I going with all of this? I want to show this film some respect. I can completely see there's not enough information on The Fly 2. So I'm going to read some facts about The Fly 2. The Fly 2 is a 1989 American science fiction horror film directed by Chris Wallace. The film stars Eric Stoltz and Daphne Zuniga, and is a sequel to the 1986 film The Fly itself, a remake of the 1958 film of the same name. Stoltz's character in this sequel is the adult son of Veronica Quaife and Seth Brundle, a scientist who became a human fly hybrid as a result of an experiment gone awry, played by Jeff Goldblum in the 1986 remake. John Getz was the only actor to reprise his role, with another actress filling in the part of Gina Davis as Quaife in the opening birth scene. Unlike the previous film, this film received negative reviews. But why? So here is some facts and trivia about The Fly 2. The first videotape of Seth Brundle, Jeff Goldblum, where he theorises that the teleporter improved him, is actually part of a deleted scene from The Fly. The scene was slightly edited for this film, and Veronica's voice was dubbed over by Saffron Henderson, who plays Veronica at the beginning of The Fly 2. The telepod props from The Fly were destroyed after filming was completed and had to be rebuilt. Keanu Reeves turned down the role of Martin Brundle. John Getz is the only actor reprising a role from The Fly. Chris Wallace wanted Gina Davis to reprise her role as Veronica Quaife for the birth scene at the beginning of the film. Gina Davis declined because she had found the maggot baby dream sequence in the original film emotionally upsetting, and was replaced by Saffron Henderson, despite being 10 years younger than Davis. The green flashes of light between each credit in the title sequence were actually borrowed from an alternate unused title sequence for The Fly. In at least one draft of the script, Martin was going to see yet another videotape of Seth Brundle, this time nearing the end of his transformation, in which Seth talks about his cure. This would have required brand new footage of Jeff Goldblum in makeup from the previous films, and the concept was subsequently dropped from the script. The movie was originally given an X rating by the MPAA because of the graphic scene where Hargis' head is crushed underneath the elevator. Director Chris Wallace appealed the decision, and the MPAA gave the film an R rating without any edits to the scene. David Cronenberg, who directed the predecessor, disliked the film. The mutated Bartok monster was played by Mark Wallace, brother of director Chris Wallace. In some US states, theatres playing The Fly 2 had a nurse on hand for the audience's reactions to its content. Mel Brooks suggested to Chris Wallace that Daphne Zuniga play Beth Logan after Zuniga starred as Princess Vesper in Brooks' Star Wars spoof Spaceballs. Mel Brooks produced the film but went uncredited as he did for the first film. He came up with the now infamous scene of a guard's face being melted off by vomit. The book next to the sleeping technician in the control room at the beginning of the film is The Shape of Rage, an anthology of writings about the films of David Cronenberg, who directed this film's predecessor. The role of Martin Brundle was written for Eric Stoltz to play. He originally declined the role because he didn't like the script. When the script was rewritten, he accepted the part. Josh Brolin revealed in an interview that he blew his audition for Martin Brundle by overcommitting to the role. Doing the metamorphosis, convulsing on the ground and foaming at the mouth, trying to put himself in the agony Martin might be going through. The filmmakers thanked him and told him it was great. When he got home, he had a message from the agent. When he called him back, his agent asked him, "What the F did you do in there?" Then telling Josh he obviously didn't win the role. Although The Fly 3 never happened, a comic book sequel, The Fly Outbreak by Brandon Seffert, was published in 2015. Outbreak takes place years after The Fly 2, and it follows Martin Brundle attempting to cure Anton Bartok of his mutant condition. An unusual teaser trailer was made for the film that consisted of no footage, just the readout of a heart monitor of a woman, presumably Veronica Quaife, screaming about an unseen painful birth. Kirstie Alley provided the voice of the woman. A scene was taken out of the film which reveals the reason why Bartok and his scientists can't get the telepods to work is because staffists took the operating disc from the telepods and all the research on it to ensure the telepods couldn't cause any more damage than they already had. Saffron Henderson was chosen to play Veronica Quaife at the beginning of the movie due to her resemblance to Gina Davis. According to director Chris Wallace, the film was a huge hit in Germany, so much that the owner of a German theatre chain sent him a letter of thanks, saying that the film saved his struggling theatre chain. An alternate ending had been filmed but deleted, which Beth joins Martin outside the boathouse with a plate of food and sits next to Martin and asks how he feels, which he replies he's feeling a lot better, and a fly lands on the plate of food. This deleted ending was added to the studio's insistence to let the audience know Martin had won his happy ending, but director Chris Wallace and the crew hated this tacked-on scene and were happy when test audiences also despised it, so the Fox executives agreed to drop it from the film. Daphne Zuniga said she took the role of Beth Logan because she was attracted to the character's strength and her emotional commitment to her relationship with Martin Brundle. Director Chris Wallace also did the special effects and puppet works on Gremlins. He turned down the offer to return for Gremlins 2, The New Batch, to direct this film. Production designer Michael S. Bolton made a cameo in a scene that was filmed but deleted. Beth stops at a snack bar on the way to Stafford's house. As Beth orders a burger and 2 big Pepsis, kids in a car parked next to Beth's car begin hassling Martin. Martin pops his head out and vomits on the car window, frightening the children. Beth races back to the car. Martin's vomit has melted the car window. Beth gets in the car and drives away. The children's father comes out of the snack bar with burgers and Pepsis, which he angrily chucks to the ground when he sees Martin's vomit on the car. Gary Chalk, who plays Scorby, was a comedian, and locals among the crew who knew him were concerned about him playing a serious role. Chris Wallace, however, had no idea of Chalk's comedy background and thought he played the role perfectly. Chalk would later find acclaim from his serious and occasional comedic performances as the voice of Optimus Prime and Optimus Primal in various Transformer cartoons. There had been a change in management at Fox between The Fly and this sequel, and the new head of Fox hadn't seen the previous film. Director Chris Wallace claims that they wanted the film to explore themes of defying destiny and what it means to be a son. but the Fox executives ordered them to ditch the existential themes and make the film a standard, gory movie that teens could enjoy on their date. Mel Brooks would later remark that he had never seen so much studio interference on a movie before. Eric Stoltz very much got into character and wanted to be called by his character's name, and he had his character's name written on the back of his chair. 20th Century Fox's decision to make Anton Bartok the film's antagonist was influenced by Alien and its sequel Aliens, in which the evil Weyland-Yutani company is the real villain. Anton Bartok and his company Bartok Industries supplied Seth Brundle with the parts which Brundle used to construct the telepods. Stephen Charles Jaffe and Chris Wallace were unsure about Daphne Zuniga in the role of Beth Logan because they have not seen any of her work. When the actress came in and read the part, Jaffe, I don't know what that is, and Wallace thought she was fantastic and she was cast. The film originally included a scene of young Martin coming across a freezer full of failed animal experiments similar to The Dog, but this was cut for pacing reasons. The sound effect of a baby Martin crying in the opening scene was borrowed from Tin Toy, one of the first animated shorts made by Pixar. Originally, writer Mick Garris' script was about Veronica being convinced not to abort her baby by a religious cult who would keep and raise Martin after he was born. The rapidly aging Martin is joined by a group of kids with their own unique abilities or deformities, and Martin could discover he could communicate with insects and would lead the kids to escape the cult and live in the outskirts of LA. This premise was abandoned for being too strange and family friendly. Another draft included Bartok scientist using cloning technology to resurrect Seth Brundle. Still stuck as Brundlefly at first, and would discover that his son Martin, who was originally meant to be a child teenager throughout the film, could communicate with him. Chris Wallace disliked this version of the story as he thought it was too odd for a premise to the point where it came off like a family-friendly horror film about a boy and his bug monster. He even threatened to walk off the project if the script wasn't changed, so the Fox executives relented and hired Frank Darabont to overhaul the script. The Fly 2, 1989, was originally going to be filmed in Toronto where The Fly was filmed, but they had no stage big enough for the sets, and the only set big enough was British Studios in Vancouver. John Getz agreed to return as Stathis Borland, but wanted to go somewhere with the character and came up with the idea of Stathis telling Martin not to sit in a chair. On a couple of occasions, Scorby addresses Martin Brundle as Marty. Stoltz had stated filming Back to the Future as Marty McFly before being replaced by Michael J. Fox, so Stoltz was first Marty McFly, then he was Marty the Fly. The infamous scene where Haggis' head is crushed by the elevator was not in the script. The elevator was not meant to be seen at all and was simply built to transport heavy props and was originally going to be hidden. But upon seeing it, director Chris Wallace instantly came up with the idea of a guard's head being crushed by it. Sam Raimi was the original choice to direct due to the success of his horror flick Evil Dead 2. Raimi and his brother Ted Raimi also wrote a treatment for the film which was rejected for being too wacky. Composer Christopher Young was hired by director Chris Wallace on the grounds that Young wouldn't simply rehash the first film score by Howard Shore. On the DVD documentary, Wallace claims that the music that plays when young Martin is crawling through the vents would later be commonly used as a temporary track in work print for other films. Stuart Cornfeld, the producer of The Fly, didn't return to produce the sequel due to a commitment on another production. Stephen Charles Jaffe took over as producer after receiving a phone call from Cornfeld asking if he would be interested in producing the sequel. Jaffe agreed after being asked if he liked The Fly, and he said that he loved it. When she was interviewed about the film, Daphne Zuniga said that Beth Logan gets stronger by what happens in the movie and changes by the end of the movie. Beth's character arc is similar to Sarah Connor's in The Terminator. In a 2017 interview with 3AW, Chris Wallace spoke about some of the challenges making the film. Fly 2 was a mixed blessing for me. It was a chance to direct, but the studio wasn't interested in an intelligent follow-up to David Cronenberg's masterpiece. They insisted I make a teen date movie, without too much thinking in it. I was assigned my main leads and the writer's strike hit after Frank Darabont's first draft, so it wasn't the most appealing entry into directing I could imagine. But it was a fantastic crew, and the actual production was a wonderful education for me. So the challenge for me was to keep the production values as high as I could and make the film look as professional as possible. The battles I had with the studio were more about my choices for writer, composer and director of photography. After the production, one of the execs came up to me and apologised for hassling me so much about them, and told me I was absolutely right about them. But I will say it was difficult for me to separate myself from the effects work. I kept wanting to operate the puppets. The word Beth types on the computer keyboard when Beth's cactus gets messed up in the telepod. Demonstration is the word fail. David Cronenberg was not available to direct The Fly 2. The film bears a couple of similarities with Return of the Fly. Ronnie Quaife dies. Martin discovers the truth about Seth and that he got fused with a fly in a telepod experiment, and Stathis revealing to Martin that Ronnie helped Seth die by shooting him in the head with a shotgun. Bartok convinces Martin to continue working on the telepods. Unlike Seth, Martin's transformation is no accident, and Martin undergoes a natural transformation, which Bartok wants to happen. Martin is restored to normal when Beth activates the gene swap program, which Martin's mutant DNA is transferred to Bartok. The family ends with a close-up shot of a fly. At BotCon 2001, Gary Chalk said the scene where Scorby's back was broken took 3 hours to film. The scene takes up less than 10 seconds of screen time. In the script, the love scene between Martin and Beth was longer. Martin and Beth are both seen naked in bed in Martin's apartment, and Beth rides Martin whilst the kitten watches. Later, Martin and Beth discuss about the telepods working, and Martin tells Beth that he has figured out a way to cure himself with the telepods, which Beth is dismayed. And Martin admits that he feels in control of his life for the first time, and that Beth gave him a taste of it, and they start making love again. Eric Stoltz lived with Jennifer Jason Leigh, who was considered for the role of Veronica in the first film. Martin Brundle is born 7 months after Veronica Quaife killed Seth Brundle. Martin Brundle, due to his inherited mutant genes, ages a lot faster. In real life, there is a rare genetic disorder called Werner syndrome, which is unusual accelerated aging. Martin kills his dog, albeit a mercy killing, Dr. Janeway, Dr. Shepard, Mackenzie, Hargis, and Scorby. The weapons Scorby and Bartok shoot Martin with are a Heckler and Koch HK-9A3 and a Desert Eagle 7. At 105 minutes, this is the longest Fly movie in the series. The first film was directed by David Cronenberg, who had also directed The Dead Zone. 2 writers of this film have also directed Stephen King adaptations. Mike Garris directed The Stand, and Frank Darabont directed The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile. In 4 of 5 Fly movies, the lab is accessed by a large sliding metal door. Delambre's lab in the 50s film, Seth Brundle's loft apartment in the lab in 1986, and Martin Brundle's Bartok Corp lab in 1989. Presumably, David Cronenberg decided to keep the motif as a nod to the original film, and it's repeated in the sequel. The blue logo within the Bartok name in the beginning of the film shares a close resemblance to the Minolta Camera Company logo. And that's that. I hope you enjoyed that. I love this film. It's good. It's good. It's not as good as the first one, but it's still good. And I suggest you watch it. The first half is magic. Second half not so good, but overall I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. I would. And I'm just going to leave that one there.
Turn on the AC. It's Angel Caruso.